Okay, thank you, Paul, for that wonderful introduction. And welcome and hello to everyone, on these precarious times. So let me first begin with the Ganesh mantra, as we always do for any of our Jyotish learning or any of the Vedic learning. We always remind ourselves of the devata or the devata who will remove all our obstructions along our path. So Om Gananam Tva Ganapatim Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashranvanuti Sadanam. Om Ganeshaya Namah. And this is a little prayer to Lord Shiva. Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Okay, so I will be discussing about Shani or Shanishcharya, as he is called, or nothing, or in English we call him Saturn. So last year, briefly, he dipped into the sign of Aquarius, and this is the sidereal Aquarius. And and this 17, that is literally in a few days time, it goes into 17th. On 17th of Jan, it moves back into Aquarius. So all this while it has been retrograding. It went into, in April of last year, it went into the sign of Aquarius for the first time, and very briefly, and then it went back. I think it was only for a few months until it started to regress back. Now, typically planets don't really go retrograde. It's sort of like our position on Earth. It appears as if it's going backwards, but really speaking, the planets don't move. They are always forever moving in forward direction. So this is very specific phenomena for our life on Earth. Well, as of now it is Earth. I don't know what the situation will be viewing from Mars, thanks to Elon Musk. So but we'll move forward as of now from Earth. So moving, so now for the first time for the next 2.5 years, it is going to move on the 17th of January. Now, one of the great myths, before I delve into what is to be expected in Aquarius, we will look at a few, the fundamental role of Saturn, what it means for all of us, and what it brings, what kind of karmic karma it brings. Right, the word karma is a very it's derived from Sanskrit to say, it means karma, which is to do, which is our actions. And often when we talk of karma, it has sort of negative implications, and in some ways it is negative because it's like paying some kind of debts, which we haven't really duly paid, where we goofed up, where we sort of evaded, and now it has come on our doorstep, on our plate, to sort of pay back. So of course, as human beings, we think we can get away with it, but sadly, at least from the Vedic philosophy, we really cannot. But first and foremost, I want to delve the context of Saturn and how it relates to the nodes of the moon. And for this, I have to bring in the whole episode of churning of the ocean milk, for to extract the nectar of immortality. Now, on the right hand side, you can see this massive temple, and this is Angkor Wat, and this is in Cambodia. And here, this is one of the oldest Vishnu temples on the planet, perhaps. And here they have the bas reliefs, all the pillars and everything. They tell this particular episode of the churning of the ocean floor for the nectar of immortality in great depth through pictorial, through carvings and things like that. Now the story in various Puranas and even in some of the Vedantic texts, ancient texts which are meant for benefit of mankind, they often talk. This is sort of like one of the fundamentals in Hinduism, and it talks about the Samudra Manthan. Samudra Manthan is nothing but the churning of the ocean. And here, why was the ocean being churned? And that is because the bas reliefs, that is because there was a big tug of war, where the 88 demigods and some 92 devas or gods, sort of went hand in hand, colluded together for this particular operation to extract the nectar of immortality. And this great war which ensued, basically the devatas, or and the head of the devatas, or the king of the devas, Indra, was responsible for this entire operation. And essentially all the demigods were getting really powerful on earth, and hence they needed to be put down, as in sort of, because they were creating a lot of mayhem and a lot of destruction to mankind, and so they needed to be sort of controlled and put a lid on their destruction. And so the devas said, but they could not do this particular operation without the help of the demigods, ironically. So, in a way, they never revealed the real reason for doing this churning of the ocean floor to extract the mortality nectar. Instead, they must have given some kind of a lie and said, we need your services. And they were, of course, you can see on the right hand side of this imagery, right hand side is all the demigods in the dark, and the devas much lighter in color, and obviously, sort of much more beautiful. So the churning began. Now remember, and there's the snake, the tug of war, the tug that was used, this great snake, Swarbhanu, right? And who was also a quite a diabolical demigod. And essentially, the tug of war began, and what was being churned, a lot of treasures started to come out. But before that, first that came out was the hala hala, that is a poison, which of course everybody was getting poison. All the, the rivers became black, and so on and so forth. And so, in a distress, Brahma and Vishnu, the creator, went to Lord Shiva, who is instrumental in this entire production, and he so drank up the hala hala poison, and his neck turned black, blue black. And often there is an imagery of Lord Shiva. Typically, his color is really pale hues of pale yellow, or very honey colored skin and beautiful skin, very light, but in this instance, his entire body turned blue because he drank up the poison. But after that, lot of the goodies came out. It's like the wish fulfilling cow came out, giving us all the pure milk, and the full fat full fat milk and gorgeous cheeses and so on and so forth. And then came goddess Lakshmi, and then came Dhanvantari, the god of Ayurveda, who's responsible for the extraction of all the plants and so on and so forth, for herbs and plants and so on and so forth, for our longevity and our diseases. And so a lot of the useful things came out for mankind, including the nectar which started to come out, which was obviously last to come. But meanwhile, some of the demigods, including Svarbhanu, that is the rope that the serpent that who got a whiff of this, and so he sort of started to also quaff some of the nectar of immortality. But meanwhile, the sun and the moon, the luminaries, went and complained to Lord Vishnu that, hey, he's drinking up some of the the nectar which was meant to be for gods and not for the demigods. And so finally Vishnu, with his discus, as you can see in his on the right hand, lower right hand corner, with his discus, sort of cut Swarbhanu into two, thus reminding of the nodes of the moon. So the nodes of the moon are like, they are shadow, they are not real planets per se. They are the nodes of the moon. So they have a sort of like a shadowy appearance, and they are nothing but Rahu and Ketu. And they are not, as I said, not specific made of physical substance as like Jupiter and rest of the Tara Grahas, that is the rest of the planets. And so the areas that were churned up were pregnant with, so wherever the nodes of the moon go in your chart or anywhere, they create absolute turbulence, mayhem. But, and Rahu, which is the north node, he rules over boundaries, foreigners, all things foreign, but also deception, also dark emotions, transformations, manipulations, alien, foreign, undeserved, unearned things. And Ketu, on the other hand, is all about spiritual mysticism, wandering, our earning, our seeking for a life of spiritual mysticism and so on and so forth. So Ketu, or the south node, rules over that. And so that together, because they were part of the same serpent, the Svarbhanu, they rule the great, they rule the great life and death, birth and rebirth, the whole cycle they preside over. And within this operation, if you see, there is this tortoise. So this whole operation would have been absolutely impossible had it not been for the great tortoise or the turtle, which was instrumental in giving stability to this entire operation. And that is nothing but one of the avatars called Kurma avatar, which is nothing but Saturn. So you see, immediately we get an idea that this is where Saturn is instrumental in our any kind of karma or any kind of building any kind of stability in our lives. Now, the Rahu and Ketu, they are also in some texts referred to as Vasuki, the ruler of the Patala Loka, that is the nether regions of the earth. And so the snakes have always been a bit of a fascination in Hinduism, and they've studied it very, very closely. And one of the reasons for our rebirth, as I mentioned, is Rahu, which is the north node. And so whenever the transit of Rahu, Ketu, along with Saturn come along, they will give you a lot of karma, pending karma from many lifetimes. The objective of Rahu is very clear. It will goad you into greed. It will tempt you into having more and more and more. It's like an insatiable beast, just like he quaffed the nectar of immortality, which he wasn't supposed to, which was not the agreed upon, by the devas, but yet he went ahead and he broke the boundaries and the limitations, and he quaffed some of it, and hence because of that, they remain immortal wherever they are. As far as our life on earth, as far as we are living and breathing, Rahu and Ketu, or the nodes of the moon, will forever be alive in ourselves. And this conflict, that is this attachment to materialism and wanting more and more versus liberating the soul, is this big dilemma, because it's always an axis. Rahu and Ketu are always opposite to each other, and they are forever as an axis. And with Saturn, when Saturn gets involved, it will bring a heavy karma regarding Rahu and Ketu. So, and this is not just on a personal level. We are nothing but, as we will see later, the south node of the moon, which is Ketu, is associated with one of the avatars of Vishnu, which is called the Matsya avatar. Now you can see this big fish here, and it's carrying these seven sages. And this particular fish is nothing but called the Matsya. Matsya in Sanskrit literally means the fish, okay? The great fish. And often he is instrumental in giving us moksha. That is, we are all here on this planet. At least that is what the Vedic view is, that we are all here on this planet to get moksha, that is, to get hold of ourselves in order to be on the path of non-attachment. That is, that is to do as much of the karma, burn off as much negative karma that one has accrued over many, many lifetimes, and one needs to just get rid of it through the agency of Saturn and south node of the moon, eventually moving towards our ultimate goal, which is non-attachment and our self-realization. That is the soul path of Ketu, or the south node of the moon. And when Saturn gets involved in any of these, then Saturn will enforce, in some ways it is it is like the significator. It'll enforce everything and it will ensure that you cannot, dodge your karma. One of the monumental texts in our astrology is called the Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, and it often describes in chapter 2 that Saturn is equivalent to the Kurma, the tortoise avatar that we just saw, and in the story. And Rahu is like the great celestial Varaha, or the pig avatar. You can see the face. He's got the face of Varaha, that is the pig. Often this is, there is a particular creature in the Scandinavian mythology. I forget the name, but they have a nose. It has a similar structure to Varaha, And then we have Ketu, which is, we just saw, it's the fish, and it is to do with our liberation of our soul or Atma here, this lifetime. So all three of these form, they have sort of here with a very clear agenda that either you burn your sins and move forward, or towards your liberation, your soul liberation, or you just keep being born again and again, which is the domain of Rahu, by tempting you for more and more, wanting more things. Now, another thing you have to also remember is that at every, all this is functional in the time and space reality. As you can see here, that the fish, or Ananta, which is the avatar, Matsya avatar, which is the avatar of Vishnu, he is responsible for taking you on a little, saving all the sages at the end of every large chunk of time, which is in Sanskrit, it is called a yuga. So, roughly speaking, when we talk of the yugas, our entire, since the beginning of time, and typically there is no beginning of time. That is the Vedic view. The Vedanta view is very clear that, time is cyclical. Now, whether it's big chunk of time or small chunks of time, it is irrelevant, but time is cyclical. It is not linear. And so when we talk of cyclical, obviously, then we are talking of massive chunks of time since the beginning. And the first one is the Satya Yuga or Krita Yuga, which has got a staggering 1728,000 human years. Now, even I can't. It's probably like some phenomenal amount, but feel free. Treta Yuga is again, which is next in line, is some another staggering some trillion human years. Then is the Dwapar Yuga, which is 864,000 human years. And finally, we are in the Kali Yuga. Literally, Kali is like the yuga of Kali or negativity, and it is only, well, I say only compared to the rest of them, is 432,000 human years. Now, it is said that in Kali Yuga is, I will come to the details of it, but Satya Yuga and Treta Yuga, where at least absolutely men lived for thousands of years, the sages lived for many, 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 like, like literally like tens and thousands of years, that because they were dedicated to the truth, they were dedicated to everyone's well-being and every bit. There was no moral deterioration, and slowly down the ages, by the time Kali Yuga has occurred, it has completely deteriorated in every sense of the word. And Kali Yuga started somewhere around 17 February 3102 BCE, and it currently, we are in the 5123rd 23rd year of Kali Yuga. So you can get an idea about what kind of a massive decline awaits us just by being in Kali Yuga for 320,000 human years. We still have a staggering 4 to 6 8 7 8 years left. So this is going to give you, like my Vedanta teacher says, that we ain't seen nothing yet in terms of the deterioration, which especially in terms of lifestyle, morals, evil, purity of environment, earth, food, water, soil, are going to get a lot worse. Now, if this depresses you, it probably should, but that is not the main idea of it, because there is a silver lining, and the silver lining is Ketu, the south node of the moon. It is about liberation, and it is said about the Kali Yuga. And so, it's like the glass half full or the glass half empty. We always have a choice to our situations, to our plight, to our problems, that we can either view it as like, oh my God, this is endless, or I am completely, karmically, I have so much crap going on, and I have been dealt a bad hand, and so on and so forth, which is all, when we talk of all this, we are in the territory of Saturn. And indeed, I think we are here on earth to burn off a lot of our negative karmas. And yes, it is suffering. There is no doubt about that. Even the most happiest of people whom you consider like, wow, they've got everything, even they, the fact that they are here on this planet, are that means there is an inbuilt clause that you're here to suffer in some way, form, or shape. Okay, so now if we assume that that is what we are here to do, then we have a lot more acceptance and lot more leeway into what we can manifest going forward, in spite of the decline that awaits us. One of the biggest things is that it is said that it is by the Devtas and by a lot of the Vedantic wisdom, that only in the Kali Yuga, by remembering the name of Lord Vishnu or Hari or any Devata that you resonate, it could even be Jesus Christ, it could be even be Allah. It does not, it is irrelevant, but it is the cosmic, the Bhagwan, the Brahman, or the I don't even want to say the source, because that's kind of belittling the entire concept of the idea of one massive force, Brahman. So just on contemplation and consistent devotion to his name, one will be able to overcome some of the ills through Kali Yuga. And at every yuga, this imagery that you saw, this complete mayhem and destruction, floods and fires and all that, it goes on for years. At the end of every yuga, that is after every yuga, Satya Yuga, and then before it moves into Treta Yuga, everything is destroyed. The same thing with Dwapar and same thing with Kali Yuga. So at the end of 432,000 years, we will all be completely annihilated. Of course, we will, a lot of us will be back here. Maybe we will have better gadgetry, we will have more AI, artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. But we will still be back to see the fall. Of course, all things may not be as bad, but nevertheless, one has to, unless one is so dedicated. You can see this person right at the imagery here is in a meditative pose. That's called the yogic posture, and it's like the person is in dhyana, that is in complete contemplation or samadhi. That means there is a potential to escape this malignancy and evil if one is in perpetual, in the contemplation or meditation over Vishnu or anyone, any devta, or any, it could be Jesus Christ, but it is the contemplation and the meditative state that is of great importance. So moving forward, the Saturn's sojourn goes into three different constellations over this period. Now, it is not just in the sign, some constellation like Dhanishta, for example, very specific it is. Dhanishta, Shatabhishach, and Purvabhadra. These are the constellations which will be covered in the next 2.5 years. And what does that mean for us? That means Dhanishta is a lot to do. It's very fierce constellation. It is a lot to do. It went into the Capricorn side of it in 17th February 2022, and it is still there in Dhanishta in spite of Saturn retrograding, and it will still be there till March 2023 in Dhanishta. Dhanishta, but the Aquarius side of it, okay? Some constellations share both signs, that is, they fall between end of Capricorn as well as Aquarius. So that is the beauty about the nakshatras or the fixed star constellations. So this is, Dhanishta is diabolical, make no mistake, okay? It is about its deity is the Ashtavasu. Ashtavasu, the Vedic deity, is 8 different kinds of wealth. We are going to see some kind of complete, what's the word, restructuring. But before we restructure, all what has been previously built up is going to be gone away. And why do I say gone away? Let me move to the what happened when Saturn moved into Capricorn on January 2020. Okay, few weeks later, the Brexit started happening. Okay, that was initiated, the Brexit downfall. And remember, if you recall, we also went into lockdown. I mean, COVID started coming out in March of that year. So you see, dead bodies started piling up, so on and so forth, since the past 2 years, and they will continue to pile up. So this has been the experience of Saturn so far in the sign of Capricorn, and you can see here, for those of you who are not familiar, I am using the Indian Vedic chart. This is still astrology, make no mistake, is just a different zodiac. There is a 24 degrees difference between the zodiacs. So it is still very much astrology. So here you can see that, in the UK, when it ingressed in the exact time, it ingressed in 122 London, UK. This is the chart for that. Sun, Saturn, and Mercury are all together in the fourth house. What does that mean? Sun, Saturn is Shraddha Yoga. Okay, Shraddha in Sanskrit literally means when somebody passes away, you are in a state of mourning. And that is in the fourth house of happiness. This holds true for the entire region of UK, United Kingdom, Jersey, and so on and so forth. But what does that mean for all of us? Fourth house is where we are, Mercury is there too. And it is, I think, combust. Yes, it is in suffering combustion. That means it is very close to the sun. Mercury is the significator for all our wealth and learning and so on and so forth. We do know what happened after that. The children, universities, everything went into lockdown. It was homeschooling. It was horrible. Students felt everybody needs to be they we are not, as a human race, we are not sheep. We can't just be put in a pen and put together and just shoved around like little, sheep, or like little chickens. That is not the ethos of human beings. And this particular experience of the past 2.5 years epitomizes it in the fourth house of the people's happiness, to our learning, where the students felt, all kinds of students, whether it's latest universities, or senior universities, or senior citizen students, or all kinds, felt completely annihilated. That Jupiter is in the third house with the south node of the moon. Jupiter in Sagittarius has a bad reputation. You may well say, wow, but Jupiter is in its own sign. Wonderful. No, it's not, because it has a very definitive agenda. It's not a happy, it has a very sort of aggressive and sort of fighting spirit there. That's the problem with Jupiter in Sagittarius. But it will not even give the results. The moon will give the results, and it is with the south node of the moon, Ketu. Remember what I said about Ketu? It will want to give up everything. Its sole purpose is, if you are chasing any kind of material stuff, it's going to be taken away. And that's what happened. And the Ketu also rules needles and all kinds of, epidemics, and all kinds of stuff, like, ill health and machines and small machines and so on and so forth. And that is exactly what we have experienced in the past 2.5 years. And let's move forward and see what is awaits us, because make no mistake, Saturn on 17th of January, on Tuesday, it goes into sidereal Aquarius. So how does that feel? Well, Saturn is rising. Thankfully, Saturn is not in the same sign, creating a Shraddha Yoga. That is, the Sun and Saturn here are together here, but thankfully here it isn't the issue. But Sun is in the 12th in a dying position. So world governments, senior officials are going to feel like they have no power. And what happens when world governments, start to feel that they are losing power? They are going to try controlling everything. That is a sad state of affairs over the next 2.5 years, because that control is going to be inevitable. Make no mistake. And let's see who can save us. Brihaspati, Jupiter, can hopefully save us, because Jupiter is one of the, if you see the astronomy of Jupiter, it's like a massive gas planet. It's got over 60 moons, So Jupiter is the greatest of benefics. Its tattva, that is its element, is Akash, that is the air element, sorry, and the ether element, the divine element. And so that is instrumental in helping human beings to come out of terrible situations. But even though at the moment it is in Pisces, but next week it is sandwiched between Saturn on one side in Aquarius, Jupiter in Pisces, and on the other side, Rahu, the north node in Aries. So it is forming like a sandwich, like between, so it's like a wonderfully dressed, you very regal and graceful woman sitting between two heavy duty thugs. That is how it is going to feel like. That Jupiter is completely useless. Its powers have been ripped, so it cannot do anything because it's like sandwich between these two things. One is, structures and, labors and labor unions, and the other one is like this, this whole clan of people who are trying to like say let's get out, and protesters and so on and so forth, and the other ones are like trying to control everything. So it is not looking very happy at all. And then you have Ketu here in the ninth house of machines. So, yes, the positive thing is there may be, well, next 2 years will pave way for massive, innovations and so on and so forth. No doubt about that. Maybe perhaps the cryptocurrencies will have to be restructured, and maybe that will give good results. Maybe, who knows? Maybe there will be some kind of big shift in terms of, learning. More people will move towards spiritual learning and mystical learning. Perhaps, we hope so, because Ketu is the initiating energy in the ninth house, very powerful, but it is literally locked in. So it begins with Ketu and it goes all the way. You can see Ketu, then the moon, which is debilitated, which has a malefic aspect of Mars and Rahu and Saturn. So all the three malefics are aspecting it. And then the moon is debilitated in the fixed star of Vishakha. So that means, Vishakha is all to do with purity. It's going to be sort of muddied. Our waters are, when we talk of the moon, it is a source of all kinds of water. It is our human emotions. It's about our human mind. It's about people in general. Do you think there would be problems with water? For sure. There may be issues to do with water, 100%. There may be, because moon is aspected by Mars. Mars is in the sign of the moon. It is to do with energy. Water and energy next 2.5 years is going to be a big focus, and there will be fights because Mars is in the fourth house. Remember what I said about the fourth house? The fourth house is all about, like, being like, it's a water house. It's where our happiness is. But if you start putting like a fireballs like Mars and Sun and all, it is going to be really drying it up. It's like throwing big balls of fire into beautiful, calm, clear, pristine lakes. It's going to, the lake is going to just sizzle and just dry out after some time. And that is exactly what we can expect. Then Mercury is retrograding. It is opposite. It is, albeit it is quite all right in the 11th house, but it is, how much can it fight? It can't really fight that much. It is all to do with like learning and our finances and so on and so forth. Perhaps, maybe, let's hope it can fight. Then we have Moon and Venus. Venus is completely and nicely, it's not, I wouldn't say it's combust, but perhaps Venus is the savior. But then the trouble is, when Venus comes together in the sign of Capricorn with the sun, there is always some kind of affliction to Venus, because you see the energy of the sun is a very solar, energy, and Venusian is a water element. Sun will completely roughshod over Venus. All the women, all the, the nice things, the luxuries, all of that is going to just evaporate. They're going to be muddy. They've been going to be dragged through. I wouldn't be surprised if there will be women taking to the streets in terms of, protests against, injustices and so on and so forth. Already there is so much stuff is coming out which is being hushed. Venus is also the power of our longevity. Never forget that. Venus has a big say in how in our healing and our longevity. Any kind of medicines or anything, Venus has a big say in that. And we are already experiencing a divided world with all the problems that is happening, in terms of the non-waxed versus the waxed. I don't want to go too much into that, but essentially that is already, we are experiencing it. More and more people are, just check with, and this is a worldwide phenomena. Even in India, I have experienced. I went, just a few weeks ago. I was in India like about 4 weeks ago, and literally everyone I felt was having some kind of a cold or a sniffle. This has never been my experience of the country. Never, ever. You know? So what is that? I don't understand what that is about. Is it like people are like more and more people are having like dropping Lisa Marie drop dead and so on and so forth. So this is all very Venusian stuff, where the healing power has failed us. Our immune systems are failing us. This is going to be huge. This is massive over the next 2.5 years. And Venus it's like her hands are strapped too, because of being in together with the sun. And a sun which is in its dying position, who wants to just control everything. Any questions, by the way? Because I feel I'm like talking in a bit of a Paul, has everyone gone to sleep?
No, you're doing well, son.
Okay. So let's move forward. I don't want to go too much into like the nitty-gritties, because otherwise we'll be here whole day. Mars ingresses in Leo, and that, so June to August is going to be a touchy time, because as we just saw, Venus goes retrograde from 23rd July in the constellation of Magha. Now, this particular constellation of Magha, which falls in Leo, is actually what do you call is actually ruled by the south node of the moon. So that means that we are again, there is going to be some kind of losses involved with Venus retrogrades. But before all of this, before we even hit July, August, and July, August, September, there is one massive shift that is going to happen. What is that? Here, Jupiter is in Pisces. It moves on the I think it's 22nd. Let me just, yeah, it moves on 22nd of April. It moves into the sign of Aries. So it conjoins Aries with Rahu. And it is going to be there from 27th May to 18th August. I think it moves into 22nd April. Sorry, I think that is a little bit of a misprint. I beg your pardon. So, but essentially, it will meet Rahu. Oh, yes, because Rahu eventually will move into Virgo as well. So, literally from April, end of April, all the way till literally November, that is a period when we should expect a lot of contentious, especially lot of falling out in terms of deaths, in terms of people sort of fighting and deaths, and already there's like shootings and all kinds of violent incidents is happening. I will not be surprised, because it is in the sign of um, Rahu. It is in the sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars. And all this is happening in the sign, it's aspected by Mars. I will not be surprised if when there may be trouble with the police force in here in the UK. I will absolutely not be surprised. It's where was I reading somewhere, or was it Paul who was mentioned? Somebody was mentioning that they were gearing up for, or was it a video somewhere I heard that they were gearing up, they were instructing through some learning how to protect your steel, have a steel door, how to protect your house from invaders, how to have arms and so on and so forth, so that anybody who intrudes or breaks in, how to manage the situation. And this is like in America, so this video I received, like, and I just was shocked, like, what are they trying to teach us? This is absolutely off the charts. So we are gearing up for something massive, and right now this year is going to be the starting point. It's already begun with the COVID situation. There is already, the plan has started. Now, the question is, what is a way out? And I keep saying, I will come to that about the way out. I think we have to have some kind of, at least for the temporary measures, some kind of spiritual journey here, because this Ketu has to be our savior. Without this, we will be very much ill at ease in this entire picture. We will see like more and more control of the governments taking control of precious metals to cryptos to sort of divided among religious movements. At least for sure it will happen in India, for sure. I mean, India just has to, somebody has just mentioned about religion, not even mentioned, just has to kind of think about it, and the riots will happen in India. That's how sensitive the whole religious issue is in India. And also, in terms of, I think there will be a lot of innovation. um, Electrics now, they are all trying to get rid of power, that is gas, which is really kind of terrible, because in retrospect one will then have to invest in a lot of, it will be much more degrading for the environment in terms of the electric costs, and they will burden the world. Everybody, all of us, a common men, all of them will be burdened by the extra cost of moving over. And why are we switching? They keep talking about, anyway, that's, I just don't want to go into this rant about it, but let's move forward. Okay, now just little on a personal level, Saturn's transit to the Lagna, that is, anyone who, you can easily find out what your rising sign is. Rising sign is nothing but the ascendant sign. You can find out, there are many softwares. Paul can help you as well. There is a free site, Circle of Divine Astrology or Dev Guru. Circle of Divine Astrology, you can just immediately find out by the sidereal Vedic one what your rising sign is. So it's Aquarius, Aries, Sagittarius, rising, Virgo, Scorpio, Taurus people will have, it will be fairly beneficial for this people, the transit of Saturn. Though, mind you, with Aries, it is in the 11th house. It's not too bad. It is a lot of hard work. They will not be seen, a lot of profits as well if they are willing to put up the hard work. And Aquarius people, it's life changing. People who are Aquarius rising or moon in Aquarius rising, absolutely, this next 2.5 years is their whole life is going to significantly, completely change. Then we have from the Lagna, that is from the second house. It is sorry, from which are the problematic, I beg your pardon, the problematic transits are which signs? They are Gemini, because it's in their ninth house. Pisces, of course, because they are already experiencing, that they are already feeling the, if you're Pisces moon, you're already feeling the pressure of the big imminent change that is to come. Cancer, Leo, Capricorn, Libra, Aquarius. I mean, Cancer people, rising people will go through what Gemini people have gone through in the past 2.5 years in the eighth house. Eighth houses, inheritances, deaths, and, seeing a lot of massive transformations, but some of them, not all of them, will be happy ones. Then it is from the moon. These particular moons will be very it'll be a relatively quite a okay transit for them: Sagittarius, Virgo, Taurus, and Aries. A lot of things will improve for them, their situations, opportunities, and so on and so forth. But rest of the moons are mixed results, but these are Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces are particularly diabolical. It is not going to be easy. If you have that, there are some remedies. One of the, of course, I'm a big on the mantras and all that. There is Om Sham Shanishcharay Namaha, Om Tram Trim Traum Sa Ketave Namaha. So these are all, you can take the presentation, and then I will come back to the remedies. But I want to do one thing. One 1463, I want to highlight some things. 1463 in Bruges, right? The assembly brought together in Bruges, and there was a full gathering of the Netherlands states. So essentially, like, major political shuffle happened in 1463, under similar situation, when Saturn was in 1463 in the sign of Aquarius. It was aspecting Rahu. It was aspecting Rahu in Aries, and it was around the Aries Libra axis, and Jupiter was with Saturn. So here, then there was another massive change in Mexico area, which is the southern hemisphere. Chimu Empire in Peru, conquered by Incas, and Chimu were sort of the Incas, the Chimu were worshippers of the moon, and the Incas were considered to be more powerful than the sun. That's how the ethos was. Ironic that the moon got wiped out by the sun. So here again, there is a message very loud and clear that the sun, as we have seen in the UK chart about the Saturn, that world governments, they are going to pull us through hell. Offerings played an important role in religious rites, so on and so forth. So basically, there was a big turbulence and overthrowing of the Chimu Empire, which had gone on for quite a few, hundreds of years. Another thing, that is the Battle of Roses. Some of you may know, House of Lancaster and York. There was this big battle that was fought in the Battle of St. Albans. Some of you may be familiar with. I had to dig this out and figure out what happened. And so that was a similar kind of, situation about the battles. Another very interesting, sorry, let me move forward. Can I not move forward? Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. Then there was another Cosimo di Medici, Italian. He was given the posthumous title, so he passed away. Then there was this big Ottoman and Turks mayhem, in Bosnia, where large number of noble families were forced to convert to Islam. Remember, again, it's when we talk about any kind of religious fanaticism or conversions, we are talking of Jupiter, and invariably we will have Jupiter when it goes this year in the sign of Pisces. Sorry, in Jupiter will be in Aries and Rahu will be in Pisces, which is again, Rahu will aspect Aries. That is again, we are back to this whole thing about Aries. So we cannot escape the violence and the religiosities connected with this violence. It is inevitable, along with the world governments, the Sicilian artists, so on and so forth. Anyway, I want to get some positive stuff. One is Leonardo da Vinci creates the first known design for a helicopter. You see, Rahu rules big machines and Ketu rules small machines. So computers, mini chips, microchips is all Ketu. We will see a huge quantum increase in the whole thing of AI. Artificial intelligence is going to be taking over. And and like U-bots. There was a series, Scandinavian series called U-bots, with very negative thing on all the how the human beings are replaced by look-alike robots, human look-alike and feel look-alike robots. And it was pretty depressing. And all the conflicts that arise between normal human beings and these manufactured human beings called U-bots. So there was this big problem because this is Rahu and Ketu. Rahu is big machine. So to create a robot, it's big machine. And then you have to have microchips and all. That's Ketu, south node of the moon. We are going to see control. And the way to control human beings is to replace them by what human beings do. And this is inevitable. So please, I don't have an answer to what is in store, but that conflict is going to come. AI, no amount of artificial intelligence can replace human emotions and intelligence. Impossible. The mind that creates, you know, uh, you cannot replicate human intelligence. It is too, that's my absolute belief. It's impossible. You cannot replicate divinity in human beings. And that is our way out. You ask, people will say, like, oh, this is also depressing. And I don't want to depress anyone. But the fact is that human beings from animals, the mammals, mammalia kingdom, there's only one factor that delineates us. That is our this ether element, that is our akash tattva, our ability to be able to divine. And I'm not talking of divine as in like predict the future, not divining, but I mean the divine within us, you know and that is what we have to be able to access in order to get out of this situation. Anyway, moving forward, again, there was Lutherans and burnt at stake, and so all kinds of stuff has happened because of this Saturn, Jupiter, Rahu getting involved. Another thing, bloody episode in Irish history. We have now moved to 1641. And here again, we have a similar situation. Rahu is in the sign of Libra, again, air sign, and Saturn is in Aquarius. And Mercury is involved, and I think Jupiter is involved because it is angular. But again, at this situation, called for another bloody episode in the Irish history. So you see, this has triggered a lot of, it is going to trigger a lot of violence and political turbulence. Um, Another thing, the Bengal, this is in India, the famine in Bengal kills 3 million people. Now, again, we have a similar situation, in 1669. But the positive thing again is that this particular company in Japan is founded, trading company in Nagoya, Japan. One of the oldest trading companies still existent, and they manufactured herbal medicines and so on and so forth. So you see, a lot of the ancient Chinese herbalism and all for healing and stuff like that, possibly had its origins from then and are still continuing to this day. So something positive has come out of it, and this is what I mean by the divinity or divine within us. And that cannot be replaced by human intelligence, is cannot be just thrown away, like say we can replicate it and there's no need for human being, which is what I think most governments will try to do eventually, or most companies will try to do. So then there was this cholera pandemic breaks in Southeast Asia, but then the Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-Sikh War ends, signing the Treaty of Lahore. Kashmir is ceded. East India Company is formed, and the Kohinoor diamond is surrendered to Queen Victoria. And again, in 1846, we have similar sort of, definitely the same transits which are there. If we study the chart quickly of then we have other you can study, these are all 1877 also, same thing. But I want to leave with this a very interesting one, Queen Victoria's. She was proclaimed the Empress of India by the Royal Titles Act in 1876. And if you see, from her moon, Saturn was in her 10th house, transiting. Saturn in Aquarius in the 10th, just as we have a situation today. Well, she's not with us, maybe in spirit, in some way, shape, or form, but the moon, she had exalted moon. And so you see, it is not all doom and gloom for people who have moon exalted, or if you have from your rising sign, from Taurus, if you have Saturn in the 10th house, which will be transiting the 10th, then it is going to give you some, some sort of silver lining to all the work that has been put in, all the hard work and learning and so on and so forth. So there is some, often some positives that come along the way. And similar to here we have Queen Victoria, one sec. um, and here again it is a similar no, it's the same chart, sorry, I beg your pardon. So yeah, it's just a different layout. So okay, so Paul, and then the Russo-Japanese begins. And let me just come to the 1964, the Vietnam war in Vietnam, and so on and so forth. Again, we had a similar thing, an exalted Rahu with Saturn in Aquarius. So that was another long drawn out war. So do you think we will see more of this coming, um, in terms of like, helping other, America's already talking about jumping in, probably UK will too, jumping into helping Ukraine and stuff like that. I don't know. Perhaps they would, but I think this is all nonsense, because it doesn't help the common man if anybody goes to war. It only helps the governments and the big agencies and the big corporates, nobody else. And the common man will always suffer, which is really sad. So over to you. And we'll now just quick remedy and then I'm done. Sorry, I've taken more time. Yes, one of the beautiful, some of them, the Namah Shivaya mantra is very, very effective. There is also some kind of fasting one people can do, especially in the month of Shravana, which is falls in August, September. Keeping peacock feathers and so on and so forth. Get a small pair of silver images of a serpent and a piece of sandalwood and wear it as a pendant, because they have great healing capacity. And same as a copper image of a serpent, because you see, we are talking about Rahu and a lot of the iron, and iron is depicted of, the metal for Saturn. So all of that will help, be creative. Saturn's food is black sesame, it's cloves, so burning cloves with black pepper and in camphor will, yes, will help. So then we have lighting lamp every around sunset will be very positive. And another mantra is Om Vishnave Nama, which is one of the best mantras, and along with Om Hanumate Nama, which is Hanuman or Hanuman Chalisa as well. Okay, I am done.